eh. Hey everybody, so I just saw Hail Caesar, the new Coen Brothers movie. It's written and directed by Ethan and Joel Coen, and it stars Josh Brolin, George Clooney, and Alden Ehrenreich. At least I think I got that right. So I've got a link to the trailer in the description below for you guys to check out. Go ahead and check out that trailer. And it's very important you check out the trailer if you haven't seen it, because it goes along the lines of some of the points I'm going to make later on. So with the story, I want to read you the line that's on IMDb explaining the story. It's one sentence, which says something, but this is what it says. A Hollywood fixer in the 1950s works to keep the studio's stars in line. That one sentence is more interesting than the movie Hail Caesar. Now, the movie wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. When you leave the theater, you usually have an emotion about the theater, about the movie experience, where you may hate it, or you just didn't like it, or maybe you kind of liked it, there were parts of it you liked, or you left thinking it was awesome. But this movie, when it ended, I looked over at my friend Ted, and we looked at each other and we were like, oh, I guess it's over. All right, and then we left. There was nothing there. The trailer made us believe we were going to get a movie kind of like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, in the pacing. Now, the look of the movie is amazing, but I'll talk about that in a second. So the trailer gave us a feel that we were going to get Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, that kind of feeling from a Coen Brothers movie, or maybe Hudsucker Proxy. But we didn't get that. The trailer set up a pacing that wasn't there, and I think the trailer is extremely misleading of what the movie actually is, and that's unfortunate. I hate it when the trailer people do that. But the pacing was not as fast as Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, where you had, good beat to beat pacing that was at a good constant rate. This one just kind of meandered around things. And then this happened, and then the movie's done. Part of what it is that I didn't like about this movie is there's really no story. Like that one sentence I read about the story, that's more interesting than the entire story of the movie. You have a bunch of characters without characterization, except for Josh Brolin and Alden Ehrenreich. Those two characters are interesting. George Clooney's character is interesting because it's George Clooney, but he doesn't really have any characterization. He's just there. And that's what most of the characters are in this movie, is they're just there. We have no backstory. We have no emotional connection with them. They're just in that world, and they happen to talk to characters that have characterization, and then that's it. But there's nothing else. So you have no investment. Now, when it comes to the cinematography, the directing, and the overall production, it looked amazing. It looked great. It really was a love letter to 50s studio-style filming. Between the earliest days of the 1900s through the 1950s, you had a studio system where the studios basically had their own directors, their own producers, their own stage crew, their own actors that worked for that studio. And then they would shuffle them around, like employees. Well, we want this person over here and this person over here. And then in the 60s and after, it became more of what we have now, where studios hire groups. And if the artist, the director, producer, writer, whatever, doesn't agree with the studio, they go to another studio. Or they just don't do the movie. But back then, it was totally different. And this movie reflected that great. You really did feel like you were witnessing what it was like to be at the studio in 1950s. That part was awesome. But there was no story. You're like, yeah. Nah, that was about it. Then the movie was over, and you feel like, yeah, I saw a movie. Just flatlined for me. So the moments that were in the trailer were the most interesting stuff in the movie for the most part. They had a couple of other things, little here and there. But like the dance sequence with Channing Tatum, that was cool. I liked that. And he worked hard for it. Comedy with Ralph Fiennes and Alden's character, that was good. I liked that. It made me laugh a little bit. But other than that, I didn't really laugh. Josh Brolin's character was interesting because he's the main character. So he actually has a backstory and an arc, and you feel for that character. For Alden Ehrenreich, I'm trying to say it right. I know I'm slaughtering it, but his character was interesting too. Like, I would like to see more of his character in the movie because I felt a connection with that character. He was very innocent and likable. Everyone else was just there. You had no connection with them whatsoever. My impression would be meh. Would I recommend seeing it in the theater? No. Would I recommend not seeing it? No. I would recommend maybe picking it up on a rental or streaming it online, Netflix or something, if you're in the mood. But if you are in the mood for a Coen Brothers movie, go watch Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, or Hudsucker Proxy, or The Big Lebowski. Check those out. Only watch this one if you're curious, but I'll bet you probably won't watch it again. So those are my thoughts. I'm pretty disappointed. I would have liked a pacing and an interesting story, just like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, but placed in the time period of the 1950s studio system. I thought that would have been awesome. Now, I know Oh Brother, Where Art Thou was based off of The Odyssey. I'm talking about more of the pacing with the humor. If that pacing and humor with the writing was in this movie, then this movie would have been great. I would have loved to consider it one of the top Coen Brothers movies, but we just didn't get that. So have you seen the movie? What did you think? Comment below, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, and I will see you guys on the next video.